is to oppress us and keep us down, and teach us how to hate ourselves.
Use scripture, slaves obey your masters, took that out of context to make us, think, talking about Ham was cursed and how all so-called blacks come from Ham, and this whole stuff. And we're looking to these so-called whites as the spiritual giants because we think that Christ, Moses, all these people. We see these movies with Charlton Heston and all this kind of stuff. And William Dafoe as Christ, and so we're all confused.
We're all confused, and I don't understand how my people can believe the so-called white man, because his track record, if he came here, raped, America was got through rape, robbery, and murder, steal, lying, and cheating. Now, then he came over here and set himself up and legalized himself. Now, he's the lawman. Now, he's the scholar. Now, he's the historian. I don't understand how they could believe what this man said after the corruption and how he done destroyed the so-called Negroes, how he done destroyed the so-called Mexicans and the so-called Indians. He murdered over 99 million Negroes in the Negro slave trade. He murdered over 77 million North American Indians when he took this land. And our people are still dying under his oppression.
So we want to talk about suffering because it's something that many church people don't talk about. They don't really deal with the issue of suffering. So we want to deal with that today. But before I go into the message, I want to show a clip of some interviews. I went out to Leimert Park and talked to some people in the community to see what they felt about suffering. And I asked them, why do people suffer today? So let's look at that clip.
I think that people suffer as a result of bad decisions. I think people suffer, for instance, for us as a people. We suffer because of who we are, the color of our skin. It's part of the fabric of the American way. I think that we suffer because we take some pleasure in inflicting pain upon others. I think there are just a sundry of reasons, but I think that our suffering as a people has been essentially because that's the nature of the American society.
Why do people suffer? That is a question that has been asked for years. Especially many people ask, why even do the righteous have to suffer? Come to conclude that we don't have altruistic answers, just that suffering happens to be a part of life. Jesus even tells us that in this world we will have tribulations, but be of good cheer, he has overcome. We just need to remember that suffering does not mean the end, and we can have answers to our suffering.
As you can see, the people in the community had some very interesting things to say. And that's why I like going out there with my camera and talking to people in the community to get a feel of where they're at, what they're thinking about regarding different issues. And so today we're talking about suffering. And what's unique about this program is that it's a live program. So a little later on you'll see a phone number. If you have any question or comments about the subject, feel free to call. We're talking about suffering. And basically there are three types of suffering. There's suffering for wrongdoing. And we all know what that is. That's when you do something wrong and you're chastised for it. For there are certain laws, and the scripture says, whatever a man sows, that shall he reap. And so when you're doing something negative, when you're transgressing against the law of God, there's going to be some type of repercussions. There's going to be something that happens to you as a result of your sinning. That's suffering for wrongdoing. Many people today are locked up in the jail because of something they did wrong. They committed a crime. If a person goes out and robs a bank and then gets put in jail for it, they cannot say, oh, I'm suffering for the Lord. They cannot equate that suffering for the sufferings that happened with Paul. When Paul was in jail, that's suffering for wrongdoing. If a person runs out and lives a very promiscuous life and ends up contracting AIDS, HIV, or whatever, that's a suffering for wrongdoing. And so that suffering is a result of something that we did wrong. So that's one type of suffering. Another type of suffering is suffering for no doing. And all people suffer for no doing, and that's due to the fact that we live in a world that has has a curse of sin in the world. There's sin in the world because of Adam, and Adam fell. There's sin now in the world. And so because of the sin in the world, there's all type of problems going on, where sometimes a baby might be born into a family that's an abusive family. So many children, they are born and they're born with addicted to drugs because the mother was on drugs. And that's suffering for no doing. This baby had no choice in the matter, but because of just sin in the world and different things going on, there's suffering involved. And as I said earlier, this is a live show, so if you have any questions or comments about suffering and what we're talking about, feel free to call the number that's on the screen. Suffering for no doing. That's another type of suffering. And then the third type of suffering, and this is a type that's very important for us as Christians to understand and to also accept and embrace. And that's suffering for well-doing. That's for doing what's right and suffering for that. And for being persecuted, for going through trials and tribulations because you're standing for the truth. You're standing for what is right. And the Bible commands us and admonishes us, encourages us to suffer for well-doing. Jesus said that in order to be his disciple, you must first deny yourself, take up your cross, and follow him.
The role of a black man is to stand firm on his conviction, and that is being a man, a leader of a family. But we have young men and some old men now say, well, we don't have any responsibility, so we let our females take over. And that is not the way to go. The man is supposed to be the head of any household.
One of respect, taking care of his family. Again, that ownership is taking care of his family, which also means taking care of the community.
And how about the women, black women?
The same thing. We need to be more supportive of our black men and love them. And it doesn't have to be a sexual thing, but I think it's a mental thing. We really need to love our black men. After all, I do.
The spiritual provider, the spirit to give like his family spiritual upliftment, just to stay focused with the Lord. And I think if the black man stays focused and walks in the spirit, that everything else will work out wonderfully for him.
I believe that the role of the black man should be, number one who is spiritually grounded, strength, and show unity and education of his people and his family.
Well, first it should be to himself. He should be true to himself, true to his God. Then he should be true to his family, his community. And as a person or as a black man, we should strive to be independent. We shouldn't be dependent. We shouldn't depend on other people for water and food and heat. We should have those for ourselves. And, I think if we got to that point, then, we'd be moving in a positive direction as a people.
Hey, what's happening, Africa? I love you. That's right. We used to feed children, and she used to help us back in the day. A lot of y'all see used to feed the kids in the morning. And I see a lot of those soldiers out here with gray hair and stuff who used to patrol the police at night. When we patrolled the police at night, in the morning, we were there feeding those children. So that's something that's very important to understand, that our struggle was always based on love. And that was made us so strong, because that's the strongest force there is. We were so in love with our young children that we were willing to take bullets for them, and we were willing to die for them. We did so much. We would tell the police, don't do this, don't that. We died, we went to prison. That the people tell me now, say, Geronimo, they say, while we were keeping the police off our children, we were spoiling them